Are marine protected areas protecting biodiversity loss due to industrial fishing? Presentation by Gingham B. Hoover. This presentation is based on the original article titled Elevated Trawling Inside Protected Areas Undermines Conservation Outcomes in a Global Fishing Hotspot. This article is by Manuel Duriel, Christina Border, Christy Burnett, Rainer Froese, and Morris Worm. Marine protected areas, or MPAs, have been established around the world as a conservation effort to protect marine habitats. This study focuses on marine protected areas in and around Europe. MPAs account for 29% of the territorial waters in the European Union, according to Standout and Wolf, 2016. These European waters are also an area that is heavily fished by commercial fishermen. It is not fully known the effect that fishing is having on the biodiversity of species in these areas. An organization known as the International Union of Conservation of Nature, or IUCN, has established guidelines on commercial fisheries within an MPA. The IUCN states, quote, any fishing gear used should be demonstrated to not significantly impact other species or other ecological values. However, there are different types of MPAs, and some of them do not have guidelines pertaining to commercial fishing. The type of fishing technique that was a concern during this study is a technique called trawling. When trawling, boats pull large nets that drag the bottom of the ocean to catch fish that dwell on the seafloor or close to it. And there's several issues that are associated with trawling, including disturbance to the seafloor. Also, the nets catch fish that they aren't intending to catch. This is called unwanted bycatch. In Europe, these unwanted fish are often endangered species. So the objective of this study was to analyze the time spent trawling within and outside of the MPAs and measure the impact of biodiversity of species within those areas. So the study focused on the subclass of chondrichthyes called elasmobranchs. This subclass includes sharks, rays, and skates. So how did the study track trawling within and outside of the MPAs, and how did they assess the number of elasmobranchs in this area? So they used data obtained from automatic identification systems, or AIS. All industrial fishing vessels in Europe 15 meters or more are required to have these systems. So the AIS systems allowed data to be obtained, including the hours the vessel spent trawling inside and the outside of the MPAs. Elasmobranchs were measured using random trawl surveys. So these surveys estimated relative abundance for 20 species. So this study was to find out if heavy trawling in these marine protected areas of Europe is having a negative impact on the population of elasmobranchs. So the results. In figure A, the black outlined areas, I'm just going to point out a few of them, show the marine protected areas. The bar graph shows the time spent trawling inside versus outside of the MPA. This is calculated as hours per square kilometer, and these results showed that trawling within the MPA was 38% higher than outside in the unprotected area. Figure B shows us the results of the elasmobranchs present. The inset is a result of the research catch per haul inside and outside of the marine protected areas. Catch outside of the MPAs were 2.3-fold higher than inside. So this figure shows the abundance of threatened species in relation to MPAs. We can see here that the largest impact shown in this study inside the MPAs are the species that fall into the endangered and critically endangered categories. So in this figure, we see the relationship between elasmobranch abundance versus commercial trawling intensity. This black line shows the relationship of the predicted relative abundance and the commercial trawling intensity. So we see that as trawling increases, the relative abundance of elasmobranchs decrease. This study indicated that trawling intensity was higher within the marine protected areas. And it also showed the relative abundance of elasmobranch species was lower inside the MPAs. Endangered species were impacted the most inside these MPAs. In an article written by Edgar et al. In 2014, they demonstrated 5 features that contributed to conservation within MPAs worldwide. The features that they looked at in this article were no-take zones, well-enforced areas, old MPAs that were 7 to 10 years old, and also large MPAs, large areas over 100 square kilometers, and also areas isolated by deep water or sand. The MPAs in the European study were not in no-take zones, and they also were not well enforced. So those are 2 of the categories of these key things that are supposed to protect MPAs. In our study, things that we looked at compared to the Edgar et al. Study, the larger size did show a relative high abundance, higher relative abundance. However, when we looked at the age of the European MPAs, they really showed no difference. So the question is, are MPAs working to protect delicate species? And the answer is no. While the concept and designation of MPAs is important, the lack of guidelines and enforcement within these MPAs is having a negative impact on conservation. Additional studies worldwide must be done to show if highly regulated MPAs are experiencing the same or perhaps less environmental impact.